Hello friends, and welcome to Abiotic Factor, which is a fantastic game, easily one of the best survival crafters out there, especially considering that it's story-driven, which is a rarity in that genre. But if you have Thalassophobia, that is, the fear of deep ocean, then parts of this game, the Hydroplant in particular, are no fun at all, and it doesn't have to be that way. Let me start by taking a minute to explain how my phobia works, because it's all well and good to say fear of the ocean, but everyone's experience with that phobia is a little different, or sometimes a lot. I'll put a skip to the good stuff if you're not interested, but I think having the context is useful so that you know where my advice is coming from. In my case, my fear is very specifically of water that I can't see through. It's the fear of the murky unknown. Some people have it so bad that they can't even look at pictures of the deep ocean without a panic attack. Mine's not quite that bad, but it's still bad enough that certain water areas in video games just aren't fun for me at all. And by not fun, I mean cold sweats and anxiety while I'm there, or even just an absolute inability to proceed. This isn't something I can twist into being a fun challenge. It just sucks, and it's torturous to get through. If I can even get through it. There are certain side quests, for example, in Cyberpunk 2077, that I still to this day cannot complete because they require diving into Darkwater. Water that I know for a fact has no entities and is 100% safe. No, I haven't done Judy's Romance either. Hell, Subnautica is one of my favorite games of all time, but I was only ever able to play it after watching the start of someone else's playthrough and seeing that the water in the starting area was clear and safe, and that the player got tools and fast vehicles. And that's part of what I hope to do here. Give some of you the familiarity and knowledge to demystify the underwater parts and help you understand where and how to be safe, or how to avoid them altogether. If you played the original Half-Life, you probably recognize just how much of an homage is the Hydroplant and Abiotic Factor. It's like they took many of the memorable tropes from Half-Life's iconic dam sequence and writ them large across a huge map. It's one of my favorite places in the game now. But it didn't start out that way. If you're like me, then as soon as you heard the words Hydroplant, you got a sinking feeling that should be familiar to most Thalassophobes, the sense that the game was about to force you into a water sequence. And you'd be mostly right. The water behind the dam is everything you probably feared it would be. Deep, impenetrably murky, and populated by a very big fish who will not be happy to see you. The first thing you should know is that the game's main story progression does not, at any point, require you to go into that water. The resources you get there are required only for optional upgrades and cooking recipes, some very good ones, but completely optional. What it requires you to do is reach a tower that is on the other side of that water. It's too far to bridge, and you sure as hell don't plan on swimming. Fortunately, this is about the point at which the game gives you an essential upgrade that makes swimming unnecessary. The long jump pack, yet another clear reference to the original Half-Life. And while this isn't quite a jetpack, that comes later, it'll definitely do the job of getting you over to the tower. Don't forget the gravity cube, that's what'll give you the distance you need. You just have to jump from the right spot and boost your way across at just the right times. It's totally doable and without any kind of pro gamer skills. There are different ways to go about this, but here's what I like to do. First, go to the far side of Hydro to where the artillery bots are guarding the bridge to the apartments. Under this bridge, there's a handy spot where you can set up a bench with a sync teleporter if that makes it easier for you to get back and forth. Make sure to bring a spare teleporter that you haven't synced though, you'll need it. Once you cross the bridge, you need to get up here on the side of this building that faces the water. The easiest way to do that is to head in the door and slip up the stairs and to the left. Watch for patrolling Exors along the way, and you'll get to this balcony here. Talk to the guy sitting there for quest progress and a new recipe, and then set down a jump pad right here by the wall. Jump pad yourself up to the roof of this part. Unfortunately, you can't place rope plants there, so just leave the pad where it is. Now for the moment of truth. Getting across from here to the rock outcropping is pretty easy. From there, get as close as you possibly can to the tower you see in the distance, and take a leap of faith. Now don't panic. The trick is not to spam the boost, only use it when you must. Using it will immediately stop your fall and boost you up and forward, so time your boost to let you down gently on the tower's platform. And that's it. You've completed the only part of main progression that would have required you to swim. Remember that unsynced teleporter I said to bring? Here in the tower, you'll find a busted PC with some pipes and duct tape, exactly what you need to craft a bench so that you can easily teleport back here anytime. You'll notice this arrangement all over once you know to look for it. The devs have very thoughtfully placed those ingredients in various places where you might think to place a bench. Although it isn't required for story progression, Reservoir Growth is a critical resource used for many upgrades, as well as for advanced crafting recipes that are optional, but extremely useful. And you will need a bare minimum of 4 of them in order to help Kylie, another 4 if you want to contain ISO 91. Unfortunately, for most of the game, there's only one place to get Reservoir Growth, in the Hydroplant Reservoir. There's a limited exception near the end, but I'll talk about that later to avoid spoilers. Here's what you'll need. A diving suit. You should have gotten the recipe from the guy on the roof of the apartments, so go back and talk to him if you didn't and craft one. It'll make your view underwater a little clearer and dramatically increase your oxygen timer. And you don't need the swim goggles if you're wearing this, so bring your headlamp or NVGs, you'll want them. A personal teleporter synced to your home bench. That way you can teleport away to safety anytime you want. Knowing you can do that is an important anti-anxiety measure. The X-ray lamp. If you didn't craft it for dealing with the Layak and the Reaper, I don't know what you're doing with your life, but make it now if you haven't. The big fish is afraid of X-rays, and it cannot attack you if you point this at it. It will turn around and go away and forget you. But where to enter the water? There's a big fish out there. No way in hell am I jumping into the unknown. Well, don't worry. You don't have to. While you're down in the lower part of the tower collecting all the photon receptors in the world, the room is dominated by a huge circular pool of dark water. I realize this only helps so much, but please understand, under the surface is nothing but an empty cylinder of water. There are no threats, no objects, just a place to go down. It's safe and empty. This is where we're going to get our feet wet. Once you dive in here, just head down and towards the sides until you find the circular opening leading into a flooded hallway. Again, don't worry, there are no threats here and there's only one way to go. Just go over and under the pipes as you need to, keep an eye on your O2, and teleport out if you feel you need to. Soon enough, you'll reach a door with a working button, which you should press immediately. That opens out into the reservoir proper, and you'll see a bunch of cool-looking glowing tech. That right there is the Reservoir Growth itself, and what you want are the glowing red bits that are sticking out of the colony. But wait, I just said this leads out into the reservoir. Yep, you heard me right. This is where my cold sweats used to set in, but again, don't panic. Yeah, there's a big fish out there, but here's the thing. There's only one, and it follows certain predictable rules and paths. Here's how it works. The beast swims around in a big circular patrol path, about 20 or 30 meters below the surface. It will never, and I mean absolutely never, come down to these canyons where the growth is unless it detects you. You hear those bloops that happen every few seconds? That's it putting out sonar pings, and it tells you just as much as it tells the fish. You can clearly hear what direction it's in and get a sense of how close it is. But here's the important part. As long as the only thing you hear are those bloops, the fish has not detected you, which it can only do if it has direct line of sight through the water at the time of the bloop. If it gets a sonar return, you'll hear a big thump after the bloop. If you get 3 of those thumps in a row, the beast has located you, and you'll hear it roar and come charging at you. But again, don't panic. I know it's probably hard not to, but as long as you shine the X-ray at it, it will turn around and forget all about you. And if, after exiting the tunnel, you immediately head down into the deeper canyons where all the growth is to collect, it'll be almost impossible for the fish to get line of sight to you anyway. You can stay down there as long as your air lasts, collect as much growth or murk weed as you want, and teleport safely away at any time. If the name Kylie doesn't mean anything to you, then I'm about to talk about a secret that you probably haven't found yet. I'll put a skip so that you can avoid spoilers if you want. Kylie Muir is the disembodied brain of a terminal patient who is going to have her consciousness transferred into a machine as an experiment. Now, ethical questions aside, the fact is that the Gate Cascade incident has left Kylie trapped, and you're her only hope of not being abandoned to a horrible fate. Unfortunately, getting to Kylie requires taking a swim. And when I first heard that, I despaired of ever being able to do this side quest at all, because I thought you'd have to swim through the reservoir. Nope, not at all. In fact, this is one of the easiest swims in the game, with clear, well-lit water and 0 aquatic threats. Let me put your mind at ease and show you what you need to do. Again, you'll need your diving suit. You can leave the X-ray behind, and a teleporter is only necessary if you want that emergency exit option. It's not a bad thing to have at all times anyway. Go to the bottom level of the hydroplant, in the room where Abe and Janet are with the sub. As soon as you come down the lift, on your left will be some breakable boxes, and behind one of those boxes is a vent that you can crawl through. That vent leads to a vertical shaft of water, and again, this is completely safe, and it's a very short swim. What we want is on the other side of that door. To get there, go up through this hole in the ceiling and crawl through another such room where there's a zombie. Take him out and head down into the water again, which opens up into a huge submerged industrial room. It's well lit, open, and easy to get around in. There's nothing here to fear. You might hear the bloop of the big fish outside, but it's out in the reservoir, not in here. There's a collectible you can grab if you want, but our path takes us down this hallway. That leads into this robot assembly room with holes in the floor, and going through a hole will take you through a short pipe that leads to a ladder up. Exit the water, and you've found Kylie.
Is someone there?
Rescuing her requires a hyperdense neural chip, which you can craft using the Reservoir Growth. If you crafted one ahead of time, you're golden. If not, there's an outlet here that you can use to place a bench for teleportation if you don't want to make the swim again. But if you're like me, then knowing when water is safe only does so much good. If I can't see through the water, I'm terrified of being in it. And the ABF devs have chosen an incredibly dense and oppressive water shader for the reservoir. Honestly, I feel like they kind of overdid it a bit. But that's neither here nor there. Fortunately, modders come to the rescue. I've installed the water shader tweak from the Accessibility Tweaks mod by Kates. It removes the underwater post-processing effect from liquids, and the difference is quite simply night and day. I personally would have preferred something more natural and in between so that it still looks like water, but this for me is the difference between fun and misery. What you're seeing now is also a big part of why I feel that the vanilla shader is really excessive. I understand that they wanted to create an atmosphere of terror and uncertainty. I respect that. But I just don't enjoy that personally, and on the flip side, they've created this incredible scene. Something that might well be straight out of the greatest parts of Subnautica. It's beautiful, it's magical, and just like the Mistlands in Valheim, the devs have elected to hide all of this gorgeous art behind an ugly opaque shader. Most players will never get to see this, and that's a real shame. With that post-processing effect gone, you can really get a sense of the true size of the playable area and how each piece relates to one another. In my case, this allowed me to complete a mental map of the reservoir, which also helps reduce anxiety. Of course, it also shows just how much of the reservoir is utterly featureless underwater, which is probably part of why they made visibility so poor to hide all the empty areas, but I think the net effect of this is truly worth it for a thalassophobe. Your mileage may vary, so do what's most fun for you. You might have noticed that I've only really talked about the hydroplant so far. That's because for the most part, it's the only sequence in the game where you might ever need to go into dark, murky water. At no point in the main story progression do you ever have to do so, and all of the other places where you can swim are small and have clear underwater visibility. The only notable exception is in the basement of Gale Reactor, where the facility is collapsed into a luminescent blue abyss. If you're unfortunate enough to fall in there, you'll find a copy of the Darkwater beast in a much smaller area. So let me be clear, there is absolutely no point going into that water. Don't do it. All that's down there is some generic loot and a shortcut back to the start of reactors. It's not worth it. And while we're discussing reactors, I'd be remiss not to point out that the corrupted security bots drop murkweed, so if you want it for your cooking recipes, there's your source. And one last thing. Remember I mentioned that there's one other source for reservoir growth? At the very end of the game, during fragments, you'll come across these eponymous floating islands from some of the major antiverses or themed areas you visited, and the sequence for the hydroplant has these convenient nodes of reservoir growth. The quantity is very small though, so if you can find a way to manage the reservoir yourself, that's still your only other source and your best one. If you're still here, I hope this has been informative for you. If I can help even one other thalassophobe enjoy a part of this game that they couldn't have played otherwise, or at least do so with a little less anxiety, then my work here is done. As always, thank you very much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.